Today we're looking at thousands of highly paid federal workers that the Trump administration is delighted to have. Plus, we have cash bonuses in certain jobs within defense at a time where we're supposed to be reducing the national deficit and making things a little bit more efficient. How will this impact you? Let's start with the PLUM Book. This month, OPM dropped a major update to the PLUM Book. It's a book that has over 9,000 federal workers, mainly political appointees, and this book has some interesting information in it. It includes names, agencies, titles, salaries, and locations. Many of these people are earning $200,000 a year in salary. Sometimes it could be a little bit over that. And the Trump administration is encouraging agencies to pay that salary, to pay the upper limits of that salary. Why? Because they admit that it takes money at times to incentivize somebody to come work for you. They want to attract talent, but only of the political variety, only individuals that are aligned with the Trump administration's vision. So essentially, if you're Team Trump and you can demonstrate that, there might be a position for you. This is usually Schedule C or SES, the Senior Executive Service. So what would it take to put someone like you into this book? These people usually worked on a campaign, high-level donors and fundraisers, think tank experts and policy advisors, or former elected officials or party operatives. These are not jobs you're going to find scrolling through usajobs.gov. An SES is typically a higher level position. So a manager, a leader, an advisor, and you can find them in pretty much every agency. Now, Schedule C is probably mid to lower level, and these individuals can be placed in a GS position. So do not confuse Schedule C with a GS grade, because you can get appointed to Schedule C and have a specific GS grade. So I met a guy under the Obama administration. So when President Obama was campaigning for president, this individual helped raise funds. So he was out there in the streets knocking on doors, but he was a member when it comes to the fundraising, right? So he was interacting with individuals, he was getting money, he was extracting money from people, and he was helping with the campaign. His reward for his efforts, first, his candidate won, right? So President Obama won. Second, he was able to attain a GS-13, and he worked in that position for a couple of years. Now, when President Obama was reelected, he ended up finding an SES position, so it can work out that way a lot of the times. The PLUM Book used to be updated only once every 4 years, but then an act came out in 2023, and now it's updated each and every year, or it's supposed to be at least. So, who do you think has the most people in the PLUM Book? What agency do you think has the most political appointees? The VA. The VA is one of them. The Veteran Affairs has a lot of political appointees. Let's take a look at this. Okay, so we searched the VA and we can see there's over 600 political appointments. Some of these salaries, they exceed $200,000 a year. And we can also see there are vacant positions that are sitting empty here. The problem with some of the information in this book is there are a lot of inaccuracies. It's on the agency to input the information. So it's not like OPM's doing it all themselves. The agencies are updating on their side. They're supposed to. But a lot of times the information just is not accurate. And I'm mainly looking at the Department of Homeland Security and I'm looking at the Department of Energy. Because over there, they have a history of submitting inaccurate information. And sometimes it's intentional. They don't want you to know who's working in that position for whatever reason. And also, people are looking at the PLUM Book and they're like, hey, this is the result of deep loyalty. This is how deep loyalty can get you high positions. And it's easy to see why some people believe that loyalty is rewarded over qualifications in some of these situations. It's not just the Republican Party. It's not just under Trump, but it's on the Democratic side as well. So it doesn't matter who the president is. When Biden was president, all the political appointees, for the most part, they were all leaning to the left. But a huge concern is misclassification. So if you have somebody coming in as an SES, they could be Senate confirmed or it could require a Senate confirmation. But for Schedule C, it doesn't require that. So let's look at it this way. You could have an individual that you have in the PLUM Book listed as Schedule C. But that person is actually doing the same responsibilities that you would have an SES do, somebody at a higher level. So by playing this little game, you can circumvent the Senate and put who you want in there with little to no attention. And that could be a huge problem. So with over 9,000 people in the PLUM Book, you might be wondering, why so many? Why do you need so many? Wouldn't it be better if the federal workforce, even at the upper echelon, if they were apolitical, if they were not loyal to any political agenda? The benefits could be less politics in the agencies, more continuity in institutional memory, and decisions may be more moderate and less ideological. The fact that there are so many political appointees makes it difficult to swallow the idea of the deep state. You've heard of that concept. You've heard it from politicians on the campaign trail. You've heard it through social media, different YouTube videos. The deep state. They're out to get you. We have to dismantle the deep state. So, yeah, that might get people energized. You might get the people fired up to vote for you. You can get a lot of support behind that. But what are we talking about? You appoint, as the president, you appoint every single individual to lead the federal agency. You have 400 federal agencies. You are appointing 400 people to lead those agencies. And on top of that, you have thousands, by the PLUM Book's estimation, over 9,000 individuals in top positions. So the whole idea of deep state melts away. Now let's shift to defense. We have the Air Force and Space Force offering some big bonuses. So the Space Force is technically underneath the Air Force. They're kind of organized underneath them. Same way that the Marine Corps is underneath the Navy, right? So these agencies, they want to pay up to $75,000 if you enlist in the Air Force or Space Force under certain occupations. So what this means is currently you're unskilled. You don't have the skills, but you're willing to learn. So you have to enlist in the military. I know a lot of people are not comfortable with that, but even if you don't want to join the military in any capacity, this information will still show you what skills are highly in demand. They're willing to pay you $75,000, and they have a multi-million-dollar budget in order to make this a reality. So maybe you want to pursue contracting, or maybe you want to have viable skills in the future for the private sector. You can still start learning these skills today. In the upcoming year, the Air Force wants to hand out these bonuses to 25,000 people. So this is an increase of 1,000%. This is a 10x. This is 10 times more than last year. And that means they have to bump up their bonus budget. They're requesting $141 million. The Space Force is doing the same thing. They're following the same playbook, but they're a smaller organization. They want to increase their bonus budget by $4 million. They want to give these bonuses out to 550 people. And if you think about, that's kind of a small number if you compare it to the Air Force, but Space Force, they only gave bonuses to 100 people the year before. So this is a dramatic increase. Why the big push, right? These are hard to fill jobs, that's why. Jobs in cyber system security, space systems, special warfare, and cryptologic language analysis. But there's a catch, because there always is a catch. And the catch here is two things. You have to complete the training, and in some situations, the training is 2 years. So let's say you start this year, you won't even see the money until 2027. So that's one requirement. The second requirement is you have to commit to 6 years. You'll still get the money after training, but you have to commit to 6 years. What if you don't pass the training? Well, if you fail, if you don't pass the training, well, there's no money for you. You're not gonna be enlisted in this occupation, so the money wouldn't be there for you. So why the bonus boom? It's because the military is competing for talent with SpaceX, with Amazon, with Lockheed Martin, and the government typically pays less. A software engineer can earn 6 figures at a tech startup. So the military has to sweeten the deal. And despite what you've been hearing about reaching recruiting goals and exceeding recruiting goals under Trump administration, you still have niche areas of the military like this where they're going to need to sweeten the deal. They're going to need to show them the money. Now, I spent 20 years in the U.S. Army, and throughout my time there, when it comes to people that join the Army, it's three groups of people, largely, right? So the first group is the escape group. They're trying to escape their hometown. They're trying to escape their mom and dad or whatever situation they have going on there. Maybe there's a lot of crime. Maybe there's a lot of drugs, and they're just trying to get out. And that's their only way they can get out. They don't have enough money to save for a bus ticket to go to New York City and to try to make it, starting from the bottom and climbing up. They don't want to do that. So the escape group is a big one. The second one is pay for my college. I want the government to pay for my bachelor's, my master's. That's huge too. There's a lot of people that go in there with the mentality of, I don't have any money for college and I need a degree, so this is the solution to my problem. Then the third group, the last group, I would say is the patriotic group. So you have people that are there because their father, their great-grandfather served in World War II, and then, their grandfather served in Vietnam, and it's a family tradition. Uncle Bob, he served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and it goes on and on. And some people have a deep loyalty to the country, and they've always known. They used to read G.I. Joe comics as a kid, and they've always known this is the path for them. But for the families, we're seeing record lows of family members that actually want their kids to join the military. I saw a poll not too long ago. It was 11% of parents that would highly encourage their kids to join the military. Of course, you don't have to join the military to get these skills. You can find them online. As long as you have discipline and you have consistency, you can pretty much learn anything online at this point. You just need to be curious. So, the best sites I saw for, cybersecurity would be Coursera, Udemy, and LinkedIn Learning. Now, you also need to practice the skills you acquire. So that would be different sites for that. You would look at Hack the Box, Try Hack Me, and doing the Capture the Flag challenges. You could also pursue certifications, and it all can be done at a fraction of the cost of a 4-year degree at a university. Now, it's interesting that we're increasing these bonuses during a time where we're trying to emphasize fiscal responsibility, or at least that's what they say. They want to reduce the federal budget. They want to save the country money. They want to reduce the size of the government. When it comes to Republicans, generally speaking, they're emphasizing immigration and defense. But it wasn't always like that. I mean, it started probably in the 1990s, because if you look back to Ronald Reagan actually signed the Immigration Reform and Control Act, which granted amnesty to over 3 million undocumented immigrants. Think about it. What Republican would do that today? Not many of them, or none of them at all at this point. So what were the big beliefs back then, before Ronald Reagan? Usually, most Republicans were all about shrinking the government, regardless if it was defense or not. Regardless of immigration. Immigration wasn't even that big of a concern. They wanted to completely shrink the government and give everything to state governments. So their platform, their policies, their ideologies have evolved, let's say that, over time to what we got now. In addition to all of this, we have growing concerns that loyalty to the president is becoming more important, and it will dictate whether or not you get promoted in some situations. And also how stable, how secure is your job. The more loyal you are, the better the chances you will have. So if you want to know more about that information, check this video out next. Stay updated by signing up to the free newsletter down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.